First, there's something I want to get off my chest that's been bothering me for a while. The biggest thing you and I must constantly fight is our own sense of despair. It's not the left. Yes, it is the left, but it's our own sense of despair that is a real problem. Of course, things are bad. Anyone with the ability to think critically can see this. I can't believe what Australia has gotten to in my lifetime, and I'm sure you feel the same. Every day the news breaks that is further proof that our nation is going in the wrong direction. Whether it's the appointment this week in Victoria of an assistant minister for changing men's behaviour, whether it's Queensland Premier Stephen Miles reducing the cost of public transport to 50 cents a ride in a blatant bid to buy votes ahead of an election, or whether it's Anthony Albanese's cluster of incompetencies over immigration, inflation, debt, his pernicious attack on Christian schools, or leaving our nation undefended militarily, or the list goes on, there is no good news coming from our political class. We are being governed by fools. And while Peter Dutton is showing some promising signs, the Liberal Party has been part of the problem. The Coalition governed for 9 years and gave us net zero policies which are driving our cost of living crisis. Sure, Labor has turbocharged this, but the folly set in under the Coalition when they put Scott Morrison on the plane to Glasgow in 2021, where he signed us up to a globalist deal that is driving the vandalism of our electricity grid. The Coalition has been weak and woke on protecting girls, women and children from radical LGBTIQA+ activism, and it has failed to protect religious freedom and the human rights of the unborn. The Liberals are at war with themselves on these fundamental cultural issues. It's not just internal cultural issues, though, that threaten the nation. There are also very real external threats that have crept up on us since the fall of the Soviet Union. Former Prime Minister Tony Abbott puts it well in this week's Australian newspaper, where he says, "The Western democracies are now feeble and divided, having militarily, industrially and culturally disarmed in the years since their seeming triumph in the Cold War against the old Soviet Union. Facing unprecedented challenges, including a militarist dictatorship in Moscow, an Islamist dictatorship in Tehran, and a communist dictatorship in Beijing, this is clearly a civilisational moment." Abbott went on to say, "This general decline of the West is the dispiriting background to our strategic disarray. People have never had more access to information, yet rarely have been so ignorant, never been more materially rich, yet rarely more culturally and spiritually bereft. And whatever might distinguish today's leaders in business, the academy, the law, the military and the church, no less than in politics, it's rarely character, conviction and courage," end quote. Tony Abbott says it so well. This to me goes to the nub of our present melee: character, conviction and courage. Conviction and courage operates from bad character on the left of politics. Make no mistake. A clear example is Attorney General Mark Dreyfus. He knows exactly what he is doing on behalf of LGBTIQA political activists as he prepares legislation in secret that will, if passed, destroy Christian and religious schools in this nation. The character, conviction and courage is lacking on the centre-right of the political spectrum to push back against the radicals and to fight for a better vision for the nation's future. Now, shows like this are important because we must look evil in the eye. We need to understand it. We need to know where it comes from. A doctor can't bring healing unless he or she looks at the ugly wound, diagnoses its cause, and then prescribes a remedy. But if all we do is consume political commentary without action, we will end up in a spiral of despair. Now, I have to admit to feeling quite desperate for the state of our nation and our children's future. Our nation is listing badly because of the lack of courage and character amongst our political leaders right across the spectrum. But we can't just howl at screens of our televisions or our devices as we consume a diet of negativity. My response to these bad trends over many years is to become politically active. Despite the very clear totalitarian impulses of the radical left, we still have a democracy in this nation. Those of us who believe that the married, monogamous, heterosexual couples with their children form the most important and basic group unit of society need to get politically active and fight for the good, the true and the beautiful. The left of politics, from the Greens, Labor and even within the Liberals, are fighting every day for the bad, the lies and the ugly. How else can you describe what their transgender agenda, for example, is doing to our children? How else can you describe the bipartisan protection of abortion to birth legislation in this nation, or euthanasia? On economics, there's nothing good, true or beautiful about net zero, which is driving up the cost of everything and littering the environment with Chinese Communist Party-made wind turbines and solar panels. I could go on. There are beautiful and necessary things which make for a strong nation and for a prosperous nation, and these things must not only be defended, but they must be promoted. Instead of worrying about the bad leaders we have today, I'm focused on raising political leaders who will replace them. That's why, with a growing team of committed and sacrificial volunteers, a group of us are working to build a political party that will stand candidates at upcoming elections in Queensland, the ACT and federally. Now, if you want to join a movement that will fight for family, faith, freedom and life, for a better future for our kids, go to familyfirstparty.org.au and click the Get Involved tab. Consuming political commentary without political action is the pathway to despair. Taking political action is the pathway to hope. There are no problems in Australia that can't be fixed with character, conviction and courage.